Whenever you are.
Are we rolling here?
We are, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee. This is July 28, 2022. I'm David Vogel, Boulder County Judge Executive and the Chairman of the committee for this year. I'd like to welcome everybody who is here at our meeting today in person and online. So we'll start with a roll call vote, please.
All right, who do we have from Bullitt County? Anybody from Bullitt County here? City of Charlestown?
Yes, Tubby.
Tubby Purcell's in the room for those online. City of J-Town? Here. Hello, Matt. Matt and Jay. City of Jeffersonville?
Andy Crouch.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andy.
City of New Albany? City of Shively? City of St. Matthews? Clark County? Here's one, Floyd County.
Nick Creevy.
Hi, Nick. Oh, here's another one, NDOT. See you, Carly.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute and it wasn't clicking. Carly Metcalf.
All right, we're on a roll now. How about Jefferson League of Cities? Here. All right, 4 for 4. 3 for 3. Let's go 4 for 4. How about KYTC?
Here, Isidro Delgado.
Isidro. Louisville Metro?
Jeff O'Brien for Louisville Metro.
Yep. I see Dirk out there too. Yeah, I see him. Thomas joining us also here. Thomas, thanks for joining us from KYTC. Thomas Witt. Anybody from the airport?
Voting.
How about Oldham County?
Here.
Judge is here. Clarksville? Park?
Carrie Butler here, slow on the unmute.
Okay. And how about any of our advisory members? I don't see any online. Anybody from FHWA? I don't believe so today, but Judge, we certainly have a good quorum here today.
All right, having a quorum and these members present, this meeting is now in order. In session. We'll go now to approval of our minutes from the June 22nd meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. This is Carrie Butler.
Second.
Any corrections or additions, subtractions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Now we'll have a public comment period, and then we'll have, I think Greg is going to give us a report on that.
Yes, so we got one public comment in this morning. It was an email. It says, good morning. I am writing today to encourage the committee to allocate funding for two-way street conversions of city and state highways across the city of Louisville, specifically the state highways that cross the neighborhoods of majority black neighborhoods as one-way streets, but immediately change to two-way streets in other areas of the city. Oak Street, Preston Highway, River Road, Jackson, Kentucky, and Breckenridge are all major roads through our neighborhoods, but many residents cannot use them to access jobs or amenities in richer areas of town because of their one-way conversions in black neighborhoods since the 1930s. We've had success with the state allocating $3 million to begin converting Shelby and Logan Street by next year, but with the intersecting one-ways on these streets, I fear that if the other state highways are not converted, this will cause many accidents for tourists that do not understand the road networks immediately change from one neighborhood to the next. The one-way conversions also make it much harder to use transit services or even go to healthcare facilities or grocery stores. Many of our seniors are beginning to age out of driving a personal vehicle, but do not have the money to retire out of state to a more walkable city. The time is now to begin designating a safer, more connected city for our elders and children. Transit-oriented development on empty parcels and parking lots will also help, but only if we are able to use the public roads for the benefit of all neighborhoods, not just suburban commuters speeding through residential areas.
Thank you.
But that is the only comment. I don't see any other in the chat, and don't see any members of the public today.
Andy, what would be our follow-up on like a comment like this? Would this be something that'd be further considered by another group, or, what would we do about it?
So we often will send those to to folks over at Little Metro in this case, right? And
That's
pass
something
that
that,
along.
really,
Always.
that's something that needs to be directed to them.
Certainly.
All right, thank you. Now, we'll have our public involvement report. Greg, if you'd like to go forward with that.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll just go through the numbers and stuff from last month and some of the comments that we also received. Good news is, again, we saw another increase on our website visits for the transportation main page as well as our tip page. On the social media side of things, we did see a little bit of a dip in the numbers. That totally wasn't unexpected. There were quite a lot of major news that happened in the month of June that kind of dominated the algorithm, kind of hurt us a little bit. Good news is, though, we were really good at the beginning of the month, and we were really good at the end of the month. It was just kind of that middle that kind of hurt a little bit. That kind of helped. That was just Facebook and Twitter, though. Instagram did see a rise, so that was a good thing to see. We just wrapped our Federal Certification Review Survey. That was last Friday, was the last day on that. We had 125 responses. I'm going to get the kind of data together now. I'm going to send that over to our partners over there at the Federal Highways. But I will have that data for you all next month as part of my report. We got some really good comments. We also had some really good data in that I think would be interesting to you all. So I will have that next month. We wrapped Amendment 8 to the MTP and the TIP. Nick will have a little bit more of that following me just here in a few minutes. We did our typical outreach for that, email campaign, social media campaign. We had a virtual public meeting on July the 6th. We did our publishments with the Mpo libraries and the Business Association and Chamber newsletters. We received 16 comments total, 8 project likes. Majority of the comments went to the I-65 paving project, and they were majority not in favor of that project just due to the price tag, the $60 million cost. I sent those comments out. You had your 15-day review period, did not get anything back from TPC, no responses or anything from that. Public outreach events, we attended the Western Library Block Party on June 11th. We also participated in the Middletown Chamber of Commerce work group as well as the Louisville Health Advisory Board. As I mentioned, we did have a few public comments come in from the Western Library Block Party. First comments is basically advocating for public transportation accessibility in the city. Another person spoke about some congestion issues at Russell Lee Drive at Carter Elementary on Algonquin. During drop-off times and pickup times, traffic backs up really bad on Russell Lee. We'd really like to see a light there, kind of help with some issues that they're having there. Another person spoke about needing just road repair overall in the city, maintenance issues. Fourth comment was potholes specifically on Esquire Alley. We also did get one other comment on our public comment map. This was about on Brownsboro Road at Holiday Manor where they're building the new VA. They would like to see the sidewalk extended out in front of the roads building so that the TARC bus doesn't have to let people off in the grass. That is all I've got. If anybody has any questions, absolutely would take them at this time, but that wraps up my report, if not.
All right, same question, Andy, again here. Do these comments go to, cities, or some organization?
We'll make sure they get in the right hands.
Extension of sidewalk and things like that.
That's right, whether it be, most of those are probably Metro and KYTC, I suppose, in this case. And if they were in Indiana, they'd be NDOT or the municipality over there.
No, it's most of the comments really do come from the, not from the outside counties, but from the metro area.
Right, those came from us, mostly or exclusively from the event in the West End. And so that makes sense that a lot of the comments were from that, immediate vicinity.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 5 here, this is the Amendment 8 to the TIP. Nick is going to review this with us and we'll make a decision on whether or not to approve.
Yes, thank you. Got a quick presentation that Greg's pulling up. Sorry about page 2 of this packet. It should have been a full schedule. Somehow it got cropped. Something, not sure what happened there. But at any rate, I'll go over the schedule and whatnot here in just a second. Again, this is Amendment 8 to the Connecting Kentuckiana 2040 MTP and the Fiscal Year 2020 to 2025 TIP. Sharing.
Yeah.
Or, sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it into full screen mode.
So this is Amendment 8. This is an exempt amendment, which means these projects that are included do not impact roadway capacity. They're not adding lanes, interchanges, new roads of that sort. And so because they are exempt, we do not have to perform air quality conformity analysis, which shaves about 2 months off our processing time for this amendment. Real quick here, the schedule. Project applications were received through June 14th. There was only a handful, as you can see in the packet, and so staff reviewed those fairly quickly. We reached out to the interagency consultation group, which is obviously a group of folks from EPA, Federal Highways, Federal Transit, and a number of state organizations as well that deal with air quality and transportation, to make sure that they agreed that none of these projects would be considered non-exempt or capacity-adding projects. And so we were able to move on and not have to go through that air quality analysis. Public comment period, as Greg mentioned, was from June 24th to July 8th with a public meeting on the evening, what was it?
July 6th.
We did send those comments to the TPC, and 2 weeks ago, TTCC did recommend TPC approval. Into the projects themselves, the first one was in Clarksville. Stansford Avenue kind of cuts right off I-65 about midway through Clarksville. And this project was actually added through Amendment 7. There were some questions during the public comment period about whether the project would include bike lanes and sidewalk upgrades, because they weren't included in the description. Afterwards, the town of Clarksville did revise that description to make sure it was clear that both sidewalks and bike lanes would be included. NDOT is doing a renovation or reconstruction of the Henryville Welcome Center on I-65. And then finally, KYTC is doing maintenance on I-65 in Bullitt County for about 6 miles. As another project, both of those projects were adding to both the MTP and TIP, while the first project, Clarksville, is just in the MTP. There's no funding awarded for that project at this time. Those are the projects, and I can take any comments or questions you have about those prior to requesting action or approval.
Anyone? All right, is there a motion that we approve adding Amendment 8 to the TIP here?
And MTP.
All right?
And MTP, yes, sir.
Moves your second? Second. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all.
Now, Elizabeth, we'll go through item number 6, your project evaluation process.
Very much. I have a presentation that will show off the new project evaluation process that we are updating for use in the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 MTP update. And just so you know, this, the project evaluation is in your meeting packet. It looks like several sheets of a spreadsheet, so you're able to look at the details in there as well. There we go. Be able to advance it. Perfect.
Yeah, so try it again.
Okay. So just a reminder about the Connecting Kentuckiana 2050 schedule, where we are. We're over midway through the update. aiming for that April 2023 deadline that we have set for ourselves for adoption by TPC. So this is right before project development, which kicks off on August 8th. And this project evaluation is a key input into that slate of projects that we have at the MCP, ensuring that those projects align with our goals and objectives and performance measures that you all have approved recently this year. So why are we evaluating projects in the first place? Firstly, we're required to show the impacts of projects in the NTP and their contributions toward federal performance measures. We also have several Mpo developed performance measures, so we also showed those impacts from the project as well. And also, this is just a really good way to support our funding decisions that you all make as TPC body, specifically for Mpo dedicated funding, but also for all the amendments that you all approve for projects in the NTP. It's an important way for us to kind of be strategic about what we're funding in the region. We did have a project evaluation process in Connecting Canada 2040, and we learned some lessons from that we took forward into this update. So the first was that we need to even the playing field, so to speak, for large and small scale projects. Really big corridor projects were the ones that scored the best and kind of skewed the evaluation for other smaller projects that may have had a really good impact, but just couldn't compete with those large scale corridor projects. We also saw a need to simplify the criteria, make the process less time intensive for staff and also for sponsors for the input required, the data that we needed to evaluate the project. We also wanted to continue utilizing all of the data that we have, making this a very data-driven process that aligns with the performance-based we're required to do from FHWA and FTA. And also enhance transparency with the project sponsors and the public. That last point, we had a working group that had really great, valuable input into this process that you see in your meeting. So they had two goals, to provide input on some staff-developed criteria, pinpoint values, and finalize a recommendation that they took to they'd recommend for approval. So digging into the summary a little bit, we have two parts to this evaluation. The first is a common criteria. You'll see that in green. It's also in green on your sheet in your meeting packet. Worth 100 points, and these criteria can be applied to all projects. So all projects, no matter their mode, will be evaluated on this common criteria. Then we have modal criteria, and that's broken down into three different modes: roadway, transit, and bike and pedestrian. Those are also worth 100 points each, depending on what the project type is. And in those modes, we also broke down criteria into categories. For safety, mobility and access, and resiliency and sustainability. Under safety, for every mode, we're looking at crashes on roadways, we're looking at bicycle and pedestrian crashes, and transit safety, for example. Under mobility and access for roadway, we're looking at congestion, how much traffic is on the street for regional significance. Whereas for bicycle and pedestrian projects, for mobility, we're looking about where is this project located, those high density land use clusters that we have, so like a big shopping area, to award points for that. So that's just kind of a high level look, and it all is in your meeting packet. I welcome any questions on the criteria, and I can answer those specifically. Otherwise, I am here to ask for action for TPC approval of this project evaluation process.
Motion? For questions, the same, before somebody,
Second.
discussion on this. Do you have someone have a question?
I think Ms. Butler was seconding.
Judge, if I may, Elizabeth, you talked about evening the playing field. Could you just talk briefly about what you did to even the playing field?
we split it into modes.
Okay.
We think that's really gonna help, because last time, I'll take the Preston corridor, long corridor, we had it as a roadway project, even though it hits on everything, and we think that even if that kind of a project is still considered a roadway project at the end of the day, it won't go up against a really good bike and pedestrian project and push it down the line, because of where it's scoring. So like the best bike ped project should be comparable to the best roadway project. 100 scale.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good one. All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, the dedicated funding program for the transit organization.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Got a brief presentation pulled up here. This is our quarterly update on the MPO dedicated funding programs in both Indiana and Kentucky. We will have action at the end for approval of a cost increase. In Indiana, we are just kicking off, they are just starting off with fiscal year 2023 in terms of their federal highway funding. And kind of looking back at 2022, there was a lot of moving pieces. We had to do a weird mini call for projects, but we can say for sure that we did not lose a single dollar back to the state. Every dollar was obligated. And that's important in Indiana because it's a use it or lose it system annually. And so we're moving on to fiscal year 23. Obviously, no obligations have occurred yet, but should be happening soon, especially with KIPTA's Every Commute Counts and the APCD CARE program that typically get their contracts going here in July. So we did add the new program for which TPC has the authority to award funds from. That's the carbon reduction program. And those funds will be wrapped up and included in the call for projects that we talked about on Monday at a workshop, and we will have another call and meeting about that next Wednesday. Going to Kentucky, we're kind of getting down to the home stretch here. Again, I added that carbon reduction program. Haven't put any funds in there yet. Obviously, we haven't had a call. Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. This is our largest program. We have a large carryover balance, as you can kind of see. We receive about $24 million a year as of fiscal year 2022. So we've got almost, a little less than 4 years worth of funding that's been carried over at this point. So we're always hoping to hit those annual allocation marks, the $24 million that I mentioned in obligations. So that would mean that we don't add to our carryover balance. We're at just under $8 million right now. Typically there are the last couple months of the fiscal year, which goes through September 30th. Are often the highest in terms of dollar amount that we've seen for obligations of other phases of projects. So likewise, in the Transportation Alternatives Program, we receive about $2 million a year. Our carryover balance is a little less than three years worth of funding right now. We've only had an allocation for a design phase of the project. So I know we've got 2 maybe construction phases, I think, 2 to 3 in fiscal year 2022, and hopefully we can see 1 or 2 of those across the finish line and get moving towards construction this fiscal year. We'll have another update on the final year's obligations in about 3 months. All right. Moving on, talk about a few of the obligations that did occur. So in Clarksville and Jeffersonville, on Montgomery Avenue in Clarksville and 9th Street in Jeffersonville, it splits the road right there underneath I-65. They are constructing new multimodal connections. They were able to obligate funds, about $350,000 for the railroad improvements that need to be done prior to construction taking place in fiscal year 20. New Albany was able to make it kind of at the last minute, but they were able to make the obligation of almost $4 million of MPO dedicated funds for the reconstruction of East Main Street, including a lot of ADA improvements, updating of sidewalks, improvement of sidewalks, lighting, and other streetscape improvements. On the Kentucky side, a couple things going on in Oldham County. The Spring Hill Trace Sidewalk, those funds were obligated for construction of that sidewalk from Kentucky 329 just past Spring Hill Court. And then Buckner Connector, a really important project in Oldham County. Additional funds were obligated in addition to, I think, the $2 or $3 million that was previously obligated for that construction phase. As we know, cost increases are across the board right now, considering inflation factors. Lastly, we do have one cost increase to request approval for. It's the KYTC's US 42 project in Oldham County. They needed one more parcel to acquire for the right-of-way phase before they can move on to construction. And so we are requesting $180,000 be awarded to that project so they can continue moving forward. Anyone have any cost questions or comments about the MPO dedicated programs?
All right, hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve?
Motion, Barney.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain since yeah.
Okay, do what?
I'll vote for it then.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you.
All right.
All right, item number 8 here now, Project Management Guidebook. Nick, did you do that?
That's me. I'm back.
You're back.
This is really quick. So our Project Management Guidebook is the document that you guys have approved over the years. This is our third update since 2016 when it was first put in place. This document kind of guides the organization on how our calls for projects for MPO dedicated funds are handled, how we handle cost increases, phase shifts, delays, how decision-making is done. So that's all described in this document. The changes that we're making are really clerical in nature, with the exception of the new carbon reduction program. So we're adding, the CRP program into our document because that is going to be available through the next call. There are a few other clerical things that we're cleaning up since we have the opportunity to. So we are just simply asking for approval of the Project Management Guidebook updates.
Motion?
Second.
Discussion on the updates here, Guidebook. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Administrative modifications, Nick, you and Greg are competing for star of the show today.
Seems like it happens more often than not. So Administrative Modification 32 was not quite ready to go out with a mail out last week, but staff was able to review all the projects that we had in the pipeline. Again, these are minor changes and they don't require any action. I'll just quickly kind of go over a few of them. There's 3 NDOT projects on I-265 where they are doing bridge deck replacements. They are simply moving some funding out to fiscal year 2024, so they're delaying the replacement of those bridges a little bit. And then there are, I think, 4 KYTC projects. They're all existing. None of these are new projects, and so we're simply moving some funding around for each one of them. There's some updates to the open to public dates. And you'll also see that $180,000 that you guys just approved, that cost increase applied to the US 42 project in Oldham County. So again, no action, but I can take any comments or questions.
Action required, all right. Question? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I'd just like to mention on that US 42, I don't know if I can give the exact history of it, but I believe when I became county judge, I attended, shortly after I became county judge 12 years ago, I attended a meeting, a briefing on US 42 was going to be widened in Prospect. It hadn't happened yet, because but we've had lawsuits and right-of-way issues, and I've given every excuse I could in that part of the county on why nothing's happened there. And so, I'd love to see this move on. It's time, All right, thank you. Now we'll back to Greg for the Indiana Mpo Conference.
Yes, I just wanted to give you all an update on what's going on. As I mentioned before, Indiana Mpo Conference, October 4th through the 6th. It's going to be over in Jeffersonville. We have now registration open. So registration fee is $150, but that comes with breakfast and lunch on 2 conference days. We've got the deadline now to register is September the 2nd. But I wanted to kind of tell you all a little bit about the mobile workshops that we're going to have. We're starting to round those into form. We've got a walking tour with the Big 4 Bridge. Jeff, I think, is going to help us out with that, or some of his staff, as well as waterfront development. We're also having a biking tour with the Ohio River Greenway, as well as a bus tour. So we're going to have those will be on the second day of the conference in the afternoon. So things we're looking forward to. We're also we have our keynote speaker, Kyle Wagachatz of, I think I'm saying that last name correctly, City Thread out of Denver, Colorado. He's going to come in and speak about complete streets. And we have some other great things as well. We have a welcome reception at Union Game Yard the first evening, as well as the next night. We've got tickets to the Louisville City soccer game. So that's part of the, if you register, it's separate, but you can get tickets for that. As well as we've got, I know it doesn't really apply to anybody here, but we've got our hotels in there if anybody wants to stay. Biggest things we're just trying to do right now is kind of get down to the presentation portion of it. We're trying to put that together, so if anybody has any great presentations that you all feel like, especially if it's surrounded around complete streets, multimodal, definitely get that, get on the website. There's a link here to the presentation proposal form that'll take you there. You fill all that out, and that'll get us on the board. Alex is taking charge of that, so he will be in contact. Definitely want to say that I know it says Indiana, but that does not mean that we are exclusive to Indiana. This is definitely going to be a bi-state, cross-the-river thing. We'd love to hear from Kentucky as well as Indiana. So if anybody out there, online, in person here, has anything that you all want to talk about in Kentucky that would work for Indiana, definitely fill it out, come on and register, join the conference. I think there's going to be there's already got some great speeches and talks in there already. So we're just trying to put together a great conference, and really your all's help is needed for all that. And if you know anybody that sponsorships as well, we're still taking sponsorships. And
yeah, and while we're at it, Sean Dykes is here in the room from Lockmuller Group, and Lockmuller Group is one of our big sponsors for this conference. So I want to give a shout out to Sean and Lockmuller Group, and I know Doug Smith's on the line too from WSP, and they've agreed to sponsor the conference as well. So I want to give a big thanks to you all personally in the meeting in front of everybody, and to the other sponsors out there as well. So appreciate it.
Does Kentucky do a conference? I'm not.
No, not really. Kentucky does quarterly transportation planners meetings where it's kind of a quarterly thing where everybody goes to Frankfurt on a middle of the week meeting, and so nothing fancy like this. No, this is our time. Every 10 years or so, it comes around to our turn to host it. And so some of y'all might remember is in 2010, we hosted it at what was then known as Kai's, right across the Clark Bridge there. Great conference. I think a lot of people had a lot of fun. We had a lot of interesting speakers. We had, I think our counterparts around Indiana. I think I've said this before, and I mean it. They like coming here. It's a little bit different than the other places in Indiana, and so they really like coming here. So we were on a call this morning with the Mpo directors in Indiana, and it sounds like there's some good feedback we're getting in there. I think they're excited to get back in person. It's the first one in person, by the way, since 2019. 2020's was canceled. They're always in the fall, so 2020 in the fall is canceled. Last year, Lafayette Mpo was scheduled to host it in 2020. Turned out that they only hosted a virtual event last year, but ours is going to be in person, full on in person. We don't anticipate offering a virtual option. We get everybody get back together over there at our meeting venue and on these mobile workshops. All three of which would at least be partially outdoors, and our social function, the welcome reception is be an outdoor facility too. So hopefully that gives us a little bit of flexibility given what we've seen. So again, Kentucky participants or Kentucky KIPTA, anybody from the KIPTA Mpo is more than welcome, and we'd love to have you, and we'll give you a shout out there too, and learn what's going on, not just in Indiana, but all across the country perhaps on some level. So please do consider joining us. And again, thanks to our sponsors. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Doug. Thank you very much, guys. There they are. They even got their logos on there.
Thank you, Greg.
yes.
Number 11 on the agenda, Safe Streets for All Grants. Alex?
Understandable. For today's lineup. Afternoon, everybody. I wanted to just give a quick update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant process that we've been talking about over the last few months, looking to put together the potential for a regional application. That's going pretty well, actually. A lot of interest out there. So what I'm going to do is just quickly try and bring everybody back to speed on what the grant is, because I know there's a lot of opportunities out there. Talk about sort of why we think it's beneficial for the region, and then give an update on where we're at, and then I'm happy to take any questions. So Safe Streets and Roads for All is coming out of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. It's a new competitive discretionary federal grant opportunity, basically focused on the Vision Zero concept, so looking to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries. There's a lot of funding available for it, $5 billion over 5 years, $1 billion each year. The application for this first round is September 15th of this year. There are two types of grant opportunities with this. We have action plan grants, which are basically planning grants where you develop, complete, or supplement a comprehensive safety action plan, or implementation grants, which are basically implementing projects that have been part of a previously approved action plan. You cannot apply for an implementation grant unless you have a verified check-the-box action plan, which for most of the region, we do not have that. Louisville Metro and New Albany both do and will be looking at implementation grants. For the rest of the region, KIP is recommending pursuing a region-wide action grant. This is a program that's sort of specifically tied to be very favorable towards MPOs and regional applications. So we think it's a great opportunity for that. First of all, it gives you access to additional funding. Judge, I think you'd said it's getting that ticket for going for the next round. And there's up to $50 million available for implementation grants, so a sizable amount of funding if you have that approved action plan. General safety is a growing priority for US DOT, everyone else. We've heard other programs out there that have been around, like HSIP, can start to look more favorable with an action plan. There's other potential opportunities out there as well. It's generally speaking just a good opportunity for a safer region-wide transportation network. And then there's a real economy of scale here. These kind of planning processes, especially if you're bringing in consultants, can be expensive for individual jurisdictions, but we get an economy of scale if we pool regional resources together. So I've been talking to a lot of y'all one-on-one and in groups over the last couple weeks on this. Just wanted to give an update on this, and if I misinterpreted anybody's verbal okay to me, let me know. I apologize. We'll move you around on the list. But basically, as we know right now, sort of what I've heard confirmed from our counties, Bullitt, Floyd, Louisville Metro / Jefferson, and Oldham counties have all confirmed that they would be in on this. I'll note for Louisville Metro that they would be in formally as a partner, not a co-applicant, so they could still be applying for the implementation grant, but they are contributing, will contribute to the match for this, which is very generous, and we're grateful for that. Clarksville and Shepherdsville on the town side, and then to my understanding from conversations over the last week, counties that are still considering, Clark, Henry, Shelby, and Trimble, for cities and towns, Charlestown, Jeffersontown, Jeffersonville, Mount Washington, and St. Matthews. Moving forward, we're asking by Monday, close of business next week, if y'all can get back to us and say if you'd be interested in this. We can go a little bit one way or the other, but we need to have a basic idea because we've got to give other jurisdictions the final sort of amount, because the match will go up or down depending on how many jurisdictions have joined us. Then we're asking for formal written commitment by mid-August and comments for the draft application, which is actually for Fed style, pretty easy application, not very big, but we'll be sending our draft around. We'll want comments back by the 22nd. Then the actual application deadline's the 15th. Moving forward, and we do anticipate now getting the application in, we think we do have a critical mass of jurisdictions that are interested. So moving forward, we will be in touch with everyone over the fall of 2023, or excuse me, I should say 2022, a little too far in advance, to form a steering committee to basically put together what our structure would be for this, and to get together a draft RFP and scope of work. So if we are fortunate enough to get the go-ahead later in early 2023, we could flip the switch right away and be ready to go, because what we want to be is sort of first in line as much as we can for the next round of grant opportunities. So when there was an implementation grant, we'd be able to get an application in there, hopefully before the rest of the country catches up and get a better chance to actually get that funding. So that's what I've got as far as an update. I'm happy to answer any questions. Don't need any action on this today.
Anyone?
I'll just add something if I can.
Yeah,
It's a unique opportunity. Thomas, do you have something to say? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, is this, and I apologize for not being too familiar with this program yet, but are the safety improvements supposed to focus on a particular type of improvement? You know, just the name Safe Streets for All to me kind of implies that they're looking at multimodal safety, but I'm not really sure, to be honest.
They're really focused on the US DOT proven safety countermeasures, which can send you around the list of that to the group. It's basically, I think, 27 different particular treatments grouped into about 5 or 6 categories, if I remember right, and they run the gamut. There's complete streets and active transportation focuses, but there's also more rural highway focus for roadway departures. It really runs the range. The only sort of unifying piece is that they've got data behind them to significantly lower crashes or deaths and serious injuries from crashes.
Yeah, so Thomas, I might add to that what we see out of this is what we envision, I think, is kind of a, you know, there's going to be some room for like an old school crash analysis or traditional crash analysis, whatever you want to call it, but then also a look at many even systemic things, including what are the prime candidates for some of those proven safety countermeasures? What are the prime contenders for rural crashes, run-off-the-road crashes, for example? Or what are the prime contenders for systemically, if you will, for the very urban side? So it won't be a one-size-fits-all, and we don't want it to be. We want each jurisdiction that joins the group here to have something that they can take back to your fiscal court or to your city council or whomever and say, here, this is back in 2022 and 2023, these are our highest need places, and we need to work, whether it be through this funding or otherwise, to get some of these dollars for safety and working on those and improving those conditions at those locations. And they run the gamut. I don't think there's anything stopping us from doing virtually any safety project, I suppose. And again, and what I was getting right there earlier, it's such a unique opportunity because there's $5 billion out there, up to $50 million could come toward our way, I suppose, in the end. But there's the state DOTs are not eligible applicants in this case. It's just regional forms of government or local forms of government. And so, for that matter, KYTC and KTC, Connected Transportation Center, are looking to partner with the ads in rural Kentucky to say, this is a pretty good idea, guys. Y'all should consider joining forces at the ad level on Kentucky side at least, and pay attention to this, and because there's real money at the end of this, there should be, and even if there's not money, even if there's not SS4A money and gobs of it coming our way, we still have at the end of this something unique to each jurisdiction that says, here's our needs. Here's what we're going to work on fixing the next year or 5 or 10 for the big ticket items perhaps. And so it really is going to be productive pursuit. So I really do encourage everybody that's on the fence to consider joining.
If we're doing a regional level, look at the whole area of these partners, break it down a little bit into the specifics then of the jurisdictions.
That's our intent, yeah. So we've had a lot of good conversation with both staff from agencies who've done proposals or planning like this before, as well as consultants who've led those efforts. So our best sense right now is we've got a sweet spot sort of dollar amount where we can get both a good regional plan that identifies those regionally significant spots, but also a sort of zoom in for each jurisdiction to have some, and it'll depend exactly how many are in, but some level of local plan that identifies the local hotspots. And
if the implementation dollars come around, assume that you need the planning side first, you would have to identify some specific. If I'm trying to apply for the implementation, how am I identified in the overall regional plan too then?
I think that's one of those that some of that will sort of remain to be seen as we develop it, but I think, if we are fortunate enough to go that far ahead, we probably would have, 2 potential main paths to go on. Would it be a regional application that just really looks at those top-end regional locations, or is it more sort of a little piece for each jurisdiction that identifies their top priority? And I think from what I've been reading, you can sort of go in either direction on these regional applications, and I think part of the planning process would be to figure out what's the right way to go forward. Does it make sense for the region as a whole to do that, or individual jurisdictions for that?
It's going to boil down to how many accidents or fatalities you've had at a certain intersection.
For sort of the judging who's going to get the first round of funding, they're going to, as we understand it, there are three main categories that they're looking at. There is your total number of fatalities, your fatalities per 100,000 population, and your equity numbers, your environmental justice numbers, which for them is their U.S. DOT disadvantaged communities interim census tracts. So you can remember all that. But basically, for any of those three categories, if you're above wherever they set the bar, you're in. And our analysis comparing the region to other regions is that it's not something to celebrate, but it is, for the purposes of this grant, encouraging that we would likely be competitive for funding. We unfortunately have a high fatality per 100,000 when you compare to a lot of peer regions. Well, actually, no. I mean, you look at the ad counties, the Trimble, Henry, Spencer, Shelby. They actually have higher per 100,000 than some of the inner counties. Certainly Jefferson, as far as raw numbers by population, unfortunately, is high. But
you talk about roadway safety. Elaborate on that. What would that include?
So the U.S. DOT proven safety countermeasures is a list of a number of different treatments that studies have shown reduces when they're put out fatalities and serious injury crashes. And these could be really it's a wide range of pieces. If you've got a dangerous curve, lowering the angle on that curve would be one piece. Major construction. Simple ways of traffic signals. There's and Andy, help me out here because you think you're a little more well-versed on this.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it up if I can share, Greg.
Oh, yeah. And putting those in, rumble strips are a proven safety countermeasure. How you're dealing with the edges of your curves for particular roads. Pedestrian visibility in crossings are another piece. I believe, just bike lanes together in a particular way that you're developing them would be as well. Again, you can see up there a wide range of potential things you can do, and we like it because it really leaves it open to the individual jurisdiction. First of all, what's the biggest problem going to be, and then what's the locally appropriate treatment to use. That what we're saying for Henry County is not going to be the same as a Jefferson.
Some of our literature.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's fair. I don't think I'm stepping out of line here. It's not limited to these things, by the way, right? Issues are going to be identified that fit these and that don't fit these, right? So I think we should go into it assuming, and I think that's a fair assumption, going into it assuming that most things are on the table. Most safety improving, if we can justify it, and this is just the simplest way to justify it, quite frankly. If it's on here, then it's a shoe-in, so to speak, in terms of the solutions. If it's not, and this has been the same case for a long time with the HSIP funding, the Highway Safety Improvement Program funding. You don't have to be on here to get that funding. You certainly don't. But you need to be able to prove or showcase why your project improves safety and why there's a proven need, and then why your project or your project improvement strategies are going to, or you suspect that they will. And there's lots of tools out there from both state DOTs, and we look forward to partnering with them and with the research arms at UK and probably Purdue also, I suppose, in this endeavor, if and when we're successful in getting it. And we think we will. I don't want to take anything for granted, but there's lots of money for these action plan grants. And there's a cap on how much each one of these can be, and therefore there will be lots of these grants around the country. And as Alex was saying to you, Judge, we feel, for better or worse, we feel like we will have a very competitive proposal on the three things that they are judging first and foremost on. So I feel real comfortable saying that.
You mentioned something about Cost of the ticket is quite, big number or amount of dollar commitment needed from the region, or how does that go with these people not participating and some are?
Our assumption right now is that the sweet spot for the total consultant package for this would be around $750,000. So $1,000 for the region, so that is $150,000, 20% local match. So that's the number that we're trying to get to, and that's where it goes up or down. Though with Louisville Metro coming on board, that for some of our smaller jurisdictions means we think, you know, everybody knows their own budget better than we do, but from what we understand, a very competitive price, and I can send that around to anybody who's interested after.
Well, thank you for me, 17,000.
Yeah, so I think looking at now, it'll be lower for y'all at this point. I said it'll be lower for y'all at this point from what we've heard. But we tried when we were having our initial conversations to sort of put the top end, so I wouldn't be coming back a week later, be like, oh, well, they're out, so actually, you know, gonna be double that.
And Judge, one of the things that we did is I took the presentation that Alex and his put together and presented it. We put it on the computer and then put it up on the big board and presented that in fiscal court. It break down the numbers. Now, one of the things Alex, ours was like 12,000 for Bullen, but we approved up to 20 in case Shepherdsville and Mount Washington decided not to get in. So we approved a little bit higher, knowing that we probably won't spend that. Shepherdsville's already in. I think Mount Washington will be too. But we committed to do that. And the excitement from the fiscal court, they voted for it unanimously, was that they would be part of our community group that would be a part of the bigger group. So that they would kind of have a say in this. The other side of it was, this is the first step in doing more regional type of grants, because as we all know in this room, it's tough to get a grant. So to be able to do this regionally, one of the things that I tried to sell them on is this is just the first step in the way we think we'll do these things in the future, and they were all on board with that. They also appreciated Metro taking a big part in this, because I did tell them that they didn't have to.
Yeah, well, from Metro's standpoint, Judge, I'll just explain where we are. I think Alex mentioned this. We've done a safety action plan for Jefferson County, and so where we are is what Keith just said there is absolutely true. We're not just seeing that in the grant applications and NOFAs that are coming out. We're actually seeing the grants are coming better or more competitive if they're coming from the region versus coming from individual counties or cities. So I think that was our impetus of, we want to be supportive of the region. We know a lot of the safety issues in Jefferson County are on our surface streets, and so we're looking at a couple of implementation grants that would take care of our surface streets, but I think there are some issues that span the region, whether it's via the interstate system, where we talk about US 42. I mean, those are roads that connect Oldham and Jefferson very intimately, connect the region very intimately. So I think we see that as like Keith said, this is the trend that the federal government is going with these grants, and I think we just want to make sure that we're participating. We know that, thankfully our council has set aside some money for us to be competitive in these bill grants, and that's what that money is there for. And so if we can bring something into the region for what in the grand scheme of our budget is a relatively small number, I think that's going to be doable. So we want to show our commitment to Kipton.
And one of the things that I presented was it's being a good neighbor. Metro did, and our fiscal court really appreciated that. So I mean, it was an easy sell.
And I don't want to discourage anybody from jumping on board with this, because I think I think it is good, just if it's, I know it's a couple $1,000, and that's a lot of money to go back to the taxpayers and say, hey, we're going to go spend money on a plan, but I think that, it is this measure of goodwill, and from our standpoint, we really do see it as like, well, if we can help address a regional issue, that's going to help the region get more money in the long run. So that's going to help. I mean, it really will be, whether we help Louisville Metro, or whether we help J-Town, or whether we help Bullitt County or Oldham County. I mean, I think that we see that this grant is going to have a long-term impact on the region, because it is one of the things I think they're gonna come to this committee and TTC see a lot and comment about our counter safety measures and our criteria, so we'd like to see those reduced, I think, overall, so.
All right, Alex, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
I have a
Tom.
question.
Oh, sorry. I'll go on.
DOT and not have made a commitment to.
Yet I'm unaware.
No, they have not yet.
Has KYTC?
We've had talks with, the folks over at KTC, and then I think we look, you know, they're gonna be shepherding it, I think, through their development district process, it sure does sound like. But direct commitment from KYTC, we've got the support from the HSIP office to say, this is, you know, y'all should go do this, basically. Am I paraphrasing that pretty well? From central office saying, hey, this is a great idea, we hope KIPTA and all the other MPOs and ads go for this.
I would just say that it would probably be pretty hard for division or section or person at KYTC to unless, so I would suggest that maybe you write a letter, formal request to the secretary. Actually try to get Thomas and Isidro.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a, well, Alex showed you the name, the communities that are in, and so it's gonna be, there'll be a steering committee, project team, whatever the heck you wanna call it, and we hope that KYTC, NDOT, KTC, others that aren't necessarily jurisdictions, those with expertise, we want to be there, and the invitation will be extended most
I
likely.
was just noticing that the deadline is August the 1st, and that today is July 20th.
Right, we're not asking for financial commitment from KYTC.
Right,
For the MPO counties.
Okay, well, I mean, any commitment, I think, that's a pretty short.
Understood. What's the deadline? August, or excuse me, September 15th is when it must be submitted to USDOT. So we're in a crunch too, for certain.
Alex, what kind of buy-in have you gotten from other counties? I mean, I'm embarrassed at what.
As far as the non-MPO counties?
Yeah.
Trimble County is considering, we have, it's still in discussion process with Henry and Shelby at this point. TBD, we'll keep y'all posted on that.
Well, I'd encourage you to maybe make another stab at, I just think it's important to be a part of this region, and saw what fortunate.
Randall Embry on our team, who is the transportation plan, a lot of communication.
I'd like to gently nudge him again, right direction. So for everything you all said, you know.
We may have something that works.
Gently nudge?
Judge, we may have a good idea.
Purpose of a public meeting, yes.
Judge, after this meeting, we can talk. There may be a good way to help that in the works. We just
because it's, I mean, it's
good development coming.
And I assume the cost may be less than, I mean, it wasn't that.
It's gone down from what we had talked about.
All the more reason we should be a part of it.
Okay, Alex, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I believe that leads us to other business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add?
I think Nick does.
Yeah, I just want to highlight a couple other funding opportunities. We've got the time and they're upcoming. I mentioned this a month ago, but U.S. or Federal Highways Administration has the Bridge Investment Program that is open right now. Applications are due by September 8th. So if you've got bridges that are in dire need of repair, if that thing has at least a $2.5 million cost to it, then you will be eligible to apply. There's well over $200 million, if not more, going to be available through that program. And the deadline is, again, September 8th. That's available, local governments, MPOs, state DOTs, all the like can all apply for that one. And then on October 3rd, the deadline closes for the US DOT's Reconnecting Communities pilot program. So there is funding available for planning grants as well as construction, kind of Ninth Street type of projects, specific to our region. Those type of corridors would be eligible for funding through that as well. So 2 opportunities there, and then also KYTC's Office of Local Programs, Jackie Jones. She manages the CMAQ program, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality. She told all the MPOs last week that KYTC will be kicking off a call for projects for CMAQ funding. They didn't tell us an exact amount of funding, but KYTC receives about $14 million a year, and there hasn't been a call for a couple years now. And so the application cycle, I think, is running from August 15th to September 30th. So if you guys are interested, there'll be a couple hoops to jump through, including KYTC's application. You'll want to make sure that project's in our MTP and or at least in our MTP, long-range plan. And then we'll also have to do there's an emissions calculator that has to be, so you are eligible for CMAQ. So 3 different grant opportunities right there in addition to the safe all that Alex was mentioning.
As I mentioned during a working group the other day, or a meeting the other day, let's get a lot of CMAQ applications. There's no reason not to. We don't know when the next opportunity is. Nick said, it doesn't come around very often. Let's come up with some good projects. Let's send them. That's the way it works. TPC prioritizes them locally. Submit them to KIP. The TPC prioritizes them. We send them to Frankfurt, and then they get awarded or not there. So I would encourage everybody in the room to strongly consider CMAQ opportunities. And for more information, just reach out to Nick or myself, and we'll be happy to help you.
Andy? All right, is there a motion, Joe? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.